transporting crude oil in this manner, and how it informs your view about combating climate change. Ms. Stefanik, let's begin with you.
So this is absolutely an issue that's important to our towns and villages across the district. Those trains actually go through Willsboro and along the lakeshore frontage. So it's an environmental issue, but it's also an economic issue, which is why I support lowering the speeds and having further regulations so that these are regulated and it's safe transport. It's also why I support pipeline. This president has blocked the Keystone Pipeline at every turn. We need to legalize the Keystone Pipeline. It's why I support the pipeline between Vermont and International Paper. It allows safe transport. And I also think at the congressional level, there's an opportunity to have someone full-time on congressional staff working with FEMA in case that there is an accident so that you have immediate access to Washington and immediate response time, because our local communities, our fire departments don't have the resources to pursue the cleanup if something were to happen. We need to make sure that at the federal level we are a helping hand to do so.
Mr. Wolf.
Well, I'm in favor of the natural gas pipeline that would go across Lake Champlain to help provide jobs at International Paper. But I think that's a very different issue than the oil trains, which are now being, we've got Bakken crude oil, which is among the most volatile oil in the world. In fact, no fire that's ever been started with that crude oil has ever been extinguished. You have to wait to let the fires burn out. It's that dangerous and that inflammable. We don't have the first responders who are ready, and I don't think that Washington is going to help us in the moment of an emergency.
Financially, providing resources at the congressional level.
You've interrupted me several times. You did that in the last debate. Is that representative of the way you're going to work in Washington?
It's not, but I do think that when you're mischaracterizing my positions,
we're going to have an opportunity for you all to shoot questions at each other. So let's let Mr. Wolf continue.
I agree with Senator Gillibrand that we need to move immediately to ban the DOT Type 111 cars. We need to have stepped up federal inspections of the infrastructure of the CSX track running along the Champlain Valley, and we also really need to make sure that our first responders are trained. One of the best ways to do that would be to work with veterans that have gotten this training in the military and give them jobs training our first responders along the railroad.
And Mr. Bonicello.
The Megantic disaster was absolutely that, because there was a huge loss of human life. Just a day or so ago, there was a derailment in, I believe, Aliceville, Alabama, in which 2.7 million gallons of this type of oil were being carried, and there was a derailment. Now, 25 of those 90 cars spilled. As Mr. Wolf was just saying, they actually have to wait until the burning is over and until they've removed the rest of the carloads before they actually know how much oil was spilled into that area. This is not only an environmental catastrophe waiting to happen and already happening, it isn't safe because of the possible loss of human life in the Adirondack Park. I'm 100% against the Keystone XL pipeline, not because this is a transitional issue. I am against the DOT 111s. I am for us buying oil from the countries that have oil and are pumping it out for now. As we begin a fossil fuel transition, it should be towards something new. We need to have a vision, as we did when we made the moon landing, that we can do something differently. How about a full transition, 100% to renewables by 2030? That's the green position. Let's do it.
Well, I want to talk about disparity in wealth. Mr. Wolf, you mentioned Warren Buffett a moment ago. He talks about the fact that his secretary pays a higher income tax rate than he does. He thinks that's ridiculous. Yeah. He would like Congress to take action on that matter. And I address this question to all of you, and we'll start with you, Mr. Wolf. If you were in Congress, would you be willing to take up this issue as Mr. Buffett would wish you to?
Look, I think one of the things that we really need to do is make sure that people have talked a long time about this kind of approach as redistributing wealth. I think that's an incorrect characterization. What we want to do is distribute opportunity. We've got 50 of the largest corporations in America. 25 of them pay no taxes at all. Your reference to the Buffett rule, I think, is a really apt one. I am the only candidate that's embraced the Buffett rule. I think it's really essential that for individuals, and where that line is drawn, it's essential that individuals who are making $5 million, $6 million, $7 million a year pay a higher tax rate than the middle class. I think that's axiomatic. That could provide revenues for our general fund, and it could begin to make sure that the opportunity is distributed more to the middle class.
All right. We pose the same question to Mr. Funicello.
Interestingly, there are a number of issues that Greens and Libertarians agree on, and conservatives and liberals do too. The idea of a flat tax has been put forward many times, and most people on the left, or most people who consider themselves liberal, are against a flat tax, feeling it's regressive. It wouldn't have to be regressive if you were talking about a $15 living wage and everyone having single-payer health care. We could get rid of an income tax, which we already know is arguably unconstitutional. You are not supposed to tax labor. We have made all kinds of provisos to change that so that the people who work for a living in this country are being taxed to the tune of 25 or 30%. This is untenable to me. What we can do is have a consumption tax. The consumption tax could be about 10%. You would then see a need to have a wealth tax to accompany that. That would probably be about 1.3%. It would give us roughly the same amount of revenue we're bringing in right now from all other forms of taxation. You could eliminate those. It would eliminate all the unnecessary complication. It would also eliminate the loopholes that corporate America and the ruling class are employing so they don't pay any taxes at all.
Ms. Stefanik.
I believe in tax fairness, which is why I'm the only candidate who wants to throw out the tax code completely and scratch with a common sense tax code that's flatter, fairer, and simpler so that hardworking families can file their own taxes, because over 80% of Americans rely on outside tax help. My Democratic opponent, Aaron Wolf, is the only multimillionaire in this race. He's a multimillionaire from Manhattan, and he's failed to release his own taxes. I'm proud to have, like other members across the aisle, Senator Gillibrand and Senator Schumer, to have released my taxes so that voters have the transparency and the accountability. I plan to do that while in Congress, but I don't support tax hikes. My opponent supports raising taxes on hardworking families. We have a spending problem in this country, not a taxing problem.
Well, that concludes the portion where we're going to ask questions of all of the candidates, and arguably this is when it gets interesting. This is when the candidates get to pose questions to each other. Each candidate can pick another candidate and ask a question. They have 30 seconds. That candidate has a minute to answer, and then the candidate asking the question gets 30 seconds to respond. And we are going to begin with Mr. Funicello. You pick first.
Will I have an opportunity to ask both candidates or just one?
You'll get to pose the question to each candidate, yes.
Okay. Initially, I would like to ask Elise a question, and that is, quite regularly you are talking about the issue with the ACA affecting your family business and about you losing health care or having the prices increased to a point that was untenable. I've experienced that as a small business person, and my workers have as well. But what would you say to the roughly 80 million of us who are either uninsured or underinsured about what is the Republican answer to this? I mean, is it health savings accounts, really?
No,
or can we have some of our 60 cents back we're already subsidizing the system with?
It's a great question, Matt. I think too often in Washington, people aren't putting forth their own solutions. My goal would be to lower health care costs so they're more affordable, both for individuals and small businesses, to improve quality and increase accessibility. And for doing that, and I hope to work on a bipartisan basis, is to allow health care to be purchased across state lines. That would help lower costs. Vermont is right across the state border. It makes sense. Also pursuing tort reform. As I've talked to physicians across the district and rural hospitals, the medical malpractice costs are rising extremely fast. We need to have a discussion about tort reform. And then I think we need to address those with preconditions that they have access to health care. And I think the way you can do that is by having state high-risk insurance pools. But it's a great question. It's something that small business owners raise throughout the district.
And I apologize. I don't think I made myself clear. Everybody gets 30 seconds to respond to this,
okay.
And I didn't make that clear.
Well, I would just like to respond to some of my Republican opponents' ideas about health care. This idea that under Stefanicare we would somehow be able to buy health insurance across state lines. Well, we already can do that under the Affordable Care Act. And I think one of the problems is that when we do that, especially where we're in a state like New York that has higher standards for patient care, and we have states competing with the New York plan, we're going to have a race to the bottom, and we're going to have lower standards for the health care that we purchase. I think one of the challenging issues here is the fact that under the Affordable Care Act, we are seeing the lowest rise in health care spending ever since this statistic has been measured. Health care costs are rising in this country lower than the rate of inflation. So it's important that that be known.
Might I rebut that?
Yes.
Yes.
30 seconds.
I would just like to say very simply this, that when you look at a country like Canada, Canada is paying 50 cents on the dollar to